This week, we're going to learn about one of those really versatile lures out there. Tim Horton is going to share with us his proven jerkbait techniques this week in depth. Then, Rick Clunn discusses how to be more efficient in your pattern fishing in the art of angling. First up, the man, Kevin Van Dam, is going to show you how he fishes a drop shot rig in this week's Fishing in 4.
Now, once you've got a spot where you've found some fish at, boy, you just spit out a big shad. You can't hardly beat a drop shot. Ah, that's a chunk right there. Drop shot. We call it the lucky rig. Always rather be lucky than good. Wow. Most people don't realize that a drop shot is not just a deep water technique. When that first came out, that's what I thought it was. You know, you sit out there in deep water, you look around with your graph, you actually see schools of bass and schools of bait down there, you drop straight over the side and catch them. And I use it a lot for that. But what I've found is that it's super effective in shallow water too. I mean, I know that there's a lot of good finesse techniques, but this is one of those things that I'll throw anywhere that I've found the bass, and I know that if they're there, I'm gonna get them to bite this. It's important when you tie up a drop shot rig to do it properly. You want to start from the point side first. So you run it through there, run it back through the other side, give yourself a lot of extra line because that's going to end up being your leader to your sinker. So I've got a lot of extra line, tie my Palomar knot. When I tighten it down, it's important to wet that knot. Pull both the tag and the main line at the same time. And then when you get done, take the tag line and run it right through the eyelet, again, the same way from the point side, and pull it tight. That makes that hook stand straight out on your line, so it's going to stick straight out with the hook point up, and that's going to make your bait have a lot more action that way. Then, I'm going to put a little worm on, a little Strike King 3X finesse worm. It's real stretchy, real soft. But the key is putting it on so it don't twist your line. So just start from the underside of that worm, about a 1/4 inch back, and then run it straight out the nose like that. That makes that worm swim right through the water straight without twisting your line. That's critical in rigging right there. Looking down at that depth finder screen all day long will give you a crook in your neck, but believe me, it's well worth it. Edwin Evers won the Bassmaster Elite Series earlier this year at Buffalo, New York, doing exactly this. He was just going along on offshore humps out in 35 to 50 foot of water, just watching that depth finder screen, and when he'd see a fish, he'd drop straight down on it and catch them. I mean, these fish are real aggressive, especially in that deeper water. They're on these places to feed, they're looking for bait fish, and if you get right over the top of them, they're gonna bite. Now that one I saw, he was right underneath the boat, and I went over a little rock pile, and it's not very deep. You can drop on them in shallow water when you see them. These fish are so related to the bottom and on that structure that you're not scared. If you're quiet with the trolling motor, you can get right over the top of them, even in pretty shallow water. We'll go in and get him. It's a nice smallmouth anyways. There's so much floating grass and stuff out here that it's hard to fish just about any other technique. You know, this right here, I can pitch it out there and I can keep it pretty well grass-free. And it's a very vertical presentation if I want it to be, yet I do really well casting this thing out on these shallow flats too. You can cast it around docks, you can fish this thing just about anywhere. That's what I love about it. It's kind of been my new go-to finesse technique. You know, I love to power fish, and it's great to catch them with crankbaits and spinner baits and things like that, but if I've got a spot, especially if I catch multiple fish off of it, I'm not going to leave before I throw this little rig out there because it'll catch everyone that swims there. After they quit biting the other baits, I can still get them with it.
You know, properly fished, the jerkbait can be extremely effective in a lot of situations. This week, Tim Horton tells us in depth.
There he is. Look at there. That is awesome. Look how thick and fat. Oh, that's a big fish right there. We're at that time of the year where the fish are really feeding up. The water temperature's cooling down and the bait fish are up on the surface. What we're gonna do, we're gonna fish a jerkbait and really try to key on the wood. These lay down logs is where these spotted bass and largemouth are gonna be hanging. A lot of people ask me about my rod and reel setup when I'm fishing a jerkbait. I like a 6'6" rod. I like a 6'6" because a 6 foot is too short. You can't get enough length on your cast. A 7 foot will actually wear you down as you're fishing throughout the day. So a 6'6" really works good. I like something with a good tip in it, like a medium to a medium heavy action rod. This is actually a Fluger rod and a Fluger reel. A 6:3 to 1 gear ratio. I like a high speed reel. It enables me to take up my slack when I'm jerking that bait. It actually just allows for easier fishing throughout the day. Line size is probably the most important setup when I'm fishing a jerkbait. A lot of people get too carried away with using too heavy of a line. I like a smaller diameter line. This is actually a fluorocarbon, Bass Pro Shops XPS 10-pound fluorocarbon. I want a fluorocarbon because it actually sinks. It doesn't float like monofilament or braided line does, and that allows me to get that jerkbait down there a lot deeper. Make sure you got really sharp hooks. Good sharp hooks is a key because a lot of times these fish just come up and flash at a bait, and you want good sharp hooks for when that happens. That's the perfect setup in fishing a jerkbait. See what flavor we got here. Oh yeah, it's a good bass. Oh, there's another one with him. There was another one with him. Jerkbaits are really good in clear water situations. If you hear people talking about jerkbaits and catching them on a jerkbait, they're living somewhere where the water is pretty clear. If you go to a lake where it's really muddied up or stained up, it's not going to work as well. That's where you're going to want a spinnerbait or a crankbait, something that's going to move a lot of water. This is a visual feeding lure. Fish have actually got to see this lure. They'll see it from 10 or 15 foot down and look up at it and be able to catch those fish. Just choke that jerkbait. Ah, yeah. Big old joker. Look how fat, boy. You can tell they're feeding up. Boy, that's a beautiful spotted bass. The Coosa River is known for these big old chunky 2 and 3 pounders. There's even some 4s and 5s and 6s that get caught in this lake. That one had another one with him. There may be a school up on this point. Let's see if we can catch some more. Oh, yeah. All right. A jerkbait to me is really a prime lure to use when the water temperatures are anywhere between 50 and 70 degrees. Once it gets above 70 degrees, there's certain lures that are better than a jerkbait. But when you have that spring and fall season, that jerkbait really, really works good. When you get temperature changes and the weather really cools down, it really affects the bait fish. A shad is a real finicky fish, and it doesn't tolerate a temperature drop really good. And those bass know it. They come up on these points like this and really ambush the bait fish. And a jerkbait is ideal in trying to mimic that situation because it looks like an injured or dying shad. There he is. Oh my goodness, it's a big old fish right here. Very next cast, look at that. Very next cast, I just let that spotted bass go, and here's a big largemouth, right on the very same point. Look at that. That goes to show you how that wind really, really positions in fish. That is so awesome. Boy, in a tournament, this is what you get so fired up about. Oh, he's hooked, I can't get it. Look at there. That is awesome. Big largemouth. Very next cast after that spotted bass, I catch this 4-pound largemouth. There's a whole school of them up there. When I caught that spot, I seen another fish with it. It wasn't this fish. The one that was with it was another spotted bass. Look at this big largemouth. This is awesome. I got them jumping out here and everything. Oh yeah. Let's get another one. Oh, that's a big fish. If I foul hooked one, that's what I did. That's why it felt so big. Big old crappie. Look at the size of this crappie. Wally Marshall, you ain't the only one to catch a big crappie. Oh, we need some hush puppies. A lot of these points that we're pulling up and fishing are wind-blown points, and that is really the key, especially when the bait fish is high. The bait fish really gets funneled into those points from the wind currents. The wind is actually what positions them, and those bass know that. They move there, they sit there and wait on those bait fish to actually blow over their heads, and they come up and eat. Oh, 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 them spots are just like smallmouth. They're so strong. Oh, that's awesome. I can get this hook out of here. Gorgeous. 3.5. Oh, look how fat. That is awesome. Oh, yeah.
Something very important in jerkbait fishing is knowing how deep your baits will dive. You know, one that dives deeper than the rest can be very, very key. So when you're at a pool or a clear body of water, figure out which ones dive deeper than the others and keep those in mind when you're fishing really cold water situations.
If I've got water temperatures down in the 50s, I'm gonna really let that bait pause. I'm gonna let it suspend for a long time. If the water temperature's in the upper 60s, which is what we had here today, I'm gonna work that lure pretty fast. I want those fish to really see that that bait fish is struggling, and I wanna get a reaction strike really quick. There he is. Right up on that pool. Oh, did he take off? I can't tell if that's a spot or a largemouth. Well, they are fun. Look, that's another spotted bass. Another spot. Not quite as big, but they are all fun, I guarantee. Well, look how fat. Another good fish on this wind-blown point. Well, that is a good one. Good tournament fish, about 14.5, 15 inches. Just another solid tub. Oh, that's awesome. Let's catch another one. You know, I noticed in fish, I started seeing a few more out over 15, 20 foot of water, but they're setting up in 5 and 6. When you're throwing a little jerkbait like this, I'm just throwing this little Excalibur jerkbait, and a lot of people think you want to throw that bait at the bank because it's only running 3 and 4 foot deep. But actually, those fish are looking up, feeding on those bait fish that are getting washed across that point by the wind, and you can actually catch them with a shallow running bait, even over that 15 and 20 foot of water. When you're jerking a jerkbait, I like to really rip it, but when I do, I like to have slack in my line. I don't like to pull really tight down on a tight line. I like to have a little bit of slack in it. That allows that bait to really dart and jump around. Gives it a lot more action. There's several of these windy points that are up and down through this shoreline. We're gonna crank up and ease over to this next one, see if we can get another bite. I feel like that wind is really going to be the key to holding these fish. A lot of times, something that's real important is a real long cast when fishing a jerkbait. What I like to do is pull up to where I can make a cast and use that wind to really help me make a long cast. And I'll pull up, usually on the upwind side, and drift across the point, making long casts across the point with that jerkbait. And it seemed like today those fish are positioned off of the saddle, off to the side of the points. And that's really key to notice. You know, keep an eye on your electronics, look and see where those fish are positioned at, and that's where you want to make your cast. Boy, when you've got an overcast day and everything is just right, the barometric pressure is low, those fish get right up on top of those points. But on a bluebird sky, high pressure like what we've had today, those fish will set off to the side of those points, and that's where you've got to make those casts to be able to catch them. Graphing a lot of fish just up off the surface. There he is. Oh, that's a big fish right there. That's a bass, oh, he just felt big. He's not that big. Watch that be a spot. Them spots pulls. No, that's a largemouth. Man, that fish really fooled me. I mean, he just loaded up on it. He felt like a really big one. Well, that's neat, catching both species like that. Well, that fish must have really turned when I first hooked him, because when he took off, I thought he was a giant. Nice largemouth, though. That is fun, right up on that point, right where the wind's been blowing in all day. What I've tried to do is really key where the wind is blowing in. That seems to be where those fish are setting. All right, another fish, same pattern. Well, that's neat when you start figuring something out and you really start putting a pattern together. Those fish are on those wind-blown points. Anywhere that wind has been blowing all day, we've had a steady wind out of the, I guess that's northeast, but it's been blowing in the same direction all day long. And what it's done is just blowed those shad up on that point, and they are really jumping on that jerkbait. What we caught a lot of these fish on today was this little Excalibur jerkbait. It's a smaller profile lure, but it's weighted really good and it casts real good. A lot of people ask me about colors when I'm fishing jerkbaits. I like colors that are transparent. Something like this shad color works really well. Unless I'm around either spotted bass or smallmouth, or I'm in a little bit of a stained color situation. This chartreuse with purple back got really popular around Table Rock Lake several years ago, where there's a lot of spotted bass and a lot of smallmouth, and it really took off throughout the country. It's another really good color. If I'm fishing on a lake where there's really some big fish, say like in California or in Texas or somewhere like that, I'll go to this big saltwater bait. This is actually a big striper bait, and it's made by Bomber, called an A-Salt, and it works really, really good if you're around some big fish. You've also got your lures like a Rattling Rogue, a real good lure in the Clearwater Lakes in Arkansas and in Alabama, Missouri, those type places. This is an old standby that's been around forever, and as you can tell, I've been to war with this one a couple of times, so another really good lure. Here we got a dead shad. You can see he's got a real shiny side and then an olive green back, and that's what we have here with this Excalibur jerkbait. And that's one thing you always want to try to do, match the look of the shad. Oh, it's a perfect match on that jerkbait. Hey, next time these conditions present itself, anywhere you live, any part of the country, a jerkbait is a dynamite lure. When it gets cool, the water temperatures are cold, go jerking, you'll have a blast.
You know, on the Elite Trail, we're faced with all kinds of conditions, and one of them's really rough water. And I have found a way to secure my trolling motor that doesn't ever give me any worries about that thing bouncing and getting loose and those kind of things, and that's using a ram mount. I use a ram mount to secure the head of that trolling motor, and it will not go anywhere. So you're catching fish, you know the pattern, but how do you most efficiently fish that pattern? Rick Clunn explains today in Art of Angling.
You know, one of the subjects that's probably been talked about more than any other subject, especially at seminars and clinics and all this type of thing, is pattern fishing. But there's a really important element in pattern fishing, and it's a transitional element that is rarely discussed, and I've been guilty of it as much as anybody else. But really the main emphasis has been on establishing the pattern. Not only establishing a pattern, but once you've established the pattern, is then how do you most efficiently utilize that pattern. For example, we go out in the morning and we're fishing everything. We're fishing a little bit of anything we see, rocks, vegetation, fishing a variety of baits, and we haven't really caught anything. Then about 10 o'clock that morning, the sun's up, the clouds went away, and all of a sudden I come to this tree fall and there's just a little bit of shade down the log, and I pitch a spinnerbait up in that shade, and boom, I catch my first fish. Pattern fishing says all the bass in a given area in a given time period are doing the same thing. So using that definition, now we look to duplicate that way we caught that fish. We look for another tree fall, and sure enough, 10 yards down the bank, there's another tree fall. So I troll motor down to it, make another cast, boom, I catch my second fish. So now I'm getting excited. So okay, now I'm keying in on what the fish are doing. Normally, a lot of times you look and there's another one down the bank 100 yards, so you troll motor down it, and you might catch a fish off it, and then there's another one 50 yards, another tree fall. And that's kind of the way you fish your pattern, but that's incorrect. What happens here that you may not be conscious of is that you're still spending more time in non-productive water in between the tree falls than you are actually fishing the pattern. The appropriate way to make this pattern work most efficiently is to crank your engine. Move with your big engine down to the next tree fall, put the troll motor down, catch that fish, crank your engine, move to the next one, catch that fish. It seems a little frantic, but what you're doing now, you're spending 80% of your day fishing the pattern instead of 80% in between the pattern. And that's really the key to success and making a pattern work. It's just that little technique I just described. So more on the art of angling, see rickkluhn.com.